Crowders, the definitive guide to debunking every January 6th lie.
So we've decided, since we did all of the work anyway, the legwork, as you can see with all of this prep.
Yep, we can see there's like 5 dudes and they have all kinds of paperwork. For sure, they are prepared and they're going to know what they're talking about.
They want all of you, and we can't address this right now. If you want to see in real time what happened, go back to our election stream. Was it 12 hours, 15 hours? I don't remember. It was very, very long. And you can see what took place in real time as we watched the votes roll in, as states were very, very likely going for Donald Trump versus when they changed live in real time. So at that point in time, you need to remember that everyone was confused. Everyone thought that something was awry.
All right, look, we're about 5 minutes in, I guess, at this point. This is Crowder's first declaration of fact and a characterization that everybody was confused. Nobody knew what was going on. And clearly, it looked like Donald Trump was going to win the election. And then something happened. This is not true. Anybody that was paying attention knew that this was going to happen. Not only was it widely predicted by every major news outlet, it was unavoidable. It was a foregone conclusion. Here's a simple example of major outlets before Election Day stating everybody knew that this was going to happen and that it was likely Trump was going to declare he was the winner even before all the ballots were cast. All the ballots that we knew were going to be cast late because of the systems that had been set up because of COVID. This was not unknown. Nobody should have been bewildered because it was a complete, obvious fucking fact. You would have had to have been an idiot then to believe that that was true, and you'd have to be an even greater idiot now to still believe it's true.
And they want you to think that that never happened. Now, wherever you line up on what happened,
no one wants you to think that what happened didn't happen.
7% absentee ballots going one way. We're not going to talk about that because,
dear Lord, I can't believe people are still doing this. Right? I did go through a little bit of this video. It's all about 45 minutes of it, I guess, and there's so much to fact check that I'm not going to have time for the voting stuff. Seriously, this, like, if you still believe this stuff, there are no facts that you're going to believe.
January 6th insurrectionists. So the goal of the January 6th hearing, and the reason it's not a trial, where you don't get to cross-examine, right? You don't get to call your own witnesses, which is important because they've made statements that would be considered potentially perjury in a court of law. We'll get to
inadmissible.
Yes, we'll get to Hutchinson in a second.
Yes.
Stories about Donald Trump jerking the wheel, and then Secret Service agents saying, no, I was there. That never happened. I would testify under oath. They were not going to be there today. And the reason is they want you all.
Look, don't these guys do politics all the time? And by extension, some legal matters. Seriously, when anybody says what they will attest to in court, you wait until they attest to it. In this case, the Secret Service agent that said he would not only would not come to testify, he retained private counsel, and then he quit so that he wouldn't have to testify.
I mean, when they do have their hearing, I expect nothing more than just innuendo, right? They kicked off the 2 Republicans that would have pushed back the hardest. I think I've got the names down here. So it was Jim Banks and Jim Jordan, right? People that would have pushed back. And what they did is put the most milquetoast Republicans possible.
Do these guys follow politics or not? If you have to write down the name of Jim Banks and Jim Jordan, Jim Banks and Jim Jordan were not allowed to be on that commission because they were both implicated in the investigation. The GOP could have picked anybody else to replace them. Instead, they decided not to have any GOP on the commission. So the Democrats picked 2 GOP members for them. Yes, they could not be on the commission. Imagine this guy not being allowed to be on the commission.
I spoke with him on January 6th. I mean, I talk with President Trump all the time.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go. I spoke with him that day after. I think after. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know. I'd have to go back and. I mean, I don't know that when those conversations happened.
Who are both on their way out, one by choice and one, thank God, not by choice. She got her butt kicked. Right. Liz Cheney and then Adam Kinzinger saying that, oh, we have Republicans as a co-chair. This is a bipartisan deal. Right. No, it's not. You're not trying to get at anything. If you were trying to get at information, you would have sworn people in. You would have brought in people who said the other view. You would have had a debate about it. You would have had Republicans on there, people that you hate.
My question is, are these guys just ignorant of what actually transpired, or are they purposefully misleading their own audience? Is their audience unaware of the facts of the commission? The facts of the commission are the GOP and the Democrats started negotiating in good faith by February of 2021. And it had gotten to the point where it was going to be exactly like a 9/11 commission. There was going to be even representation of GOP and Democrats. It wasn't any, they considered it not just bipartisan, but they wanted it to be nonpartisan. Both groups would have equal subpoena power. They could call whoever they wanted. They could talk to them in any fashion that they wanted. And that decision that finally, came to a head was voted on and approved in the House by 35 Republicans and all the Democrats. When it got to the Senate, McConnell said it was going to be a purely political exercise, and he canceled it. The Republicans wouldn't vote for it after all those months of negotiating to make a bipartisan commission happen. Exactly what this guy here is saying that he would prefer to have happened. So let's get the facts straight on that.
Point is, news isn't real. Nothing is real as far as it relates to the media. So
listen to his speech at all.
Right.
He did not instruct them. He said, hey, I hear you guys are going to the Capitol to make your voices heard peacefully.
Why you lie, Joe? Why? That's not what he said, and you know it. He said, we're going to go down there, we're going to cheer on the good guys, and some of the guys we're not going to cheer on at all because you have to be strong, you have to be tough to win back our country. He instructed them.
And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
So here's the truth, obviously. Donald Trump did tell them to go home. Here you go, in case you didn't see it first.
Okay, we're going to go to that right now. Here's a message from President Trump.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election.
Dude, this is 3 hours later. Yes, he did. 3 hours later. That was 3 hours of every politician, everybody at Fox News, and everybody in his family begging him to make a statement to tell them to stop. Good on you.
Our great
Media was just complicit with everything. And so when this happens, the election happens, we all see it. We see it change in the middle of the night. We're thinking democracy is being stolen right now. Donald Trump called it. These guys are doing it. The media is carrying their water. And now we can't have a voice because if you say it, you're an election denier.
Right.
And these people are just going there to protest this happening.
Yeah,
right.
we actually have a...
For fuck's sake, dude, there was no this happening. Donald Trump started his campaign of disinformation in May before the election and kept hammering away at it. Here we are 2 years later, and you're still hammering away at the bullshit. There was no this happened. The media wasn't carrying anyone's water during that election period. They were stating the facts. None of the things that you think happened. Who's carrying water is you, and you're still fucking carrying it right now.
So is it trespassing if it's a public building you're allowed to go into and the guy's laying down ground rules for you to be in there?
Well, he was invited, I think, if he went into Pelosi's office. It's hard for me to keep track of who went into which office. Those are private offices.
Right, no, I know that in that moment, though.
No, in that moment, that's not trespassing at all.
Okay, that's what I
Well,
was
it's
curious.
the people's house.
Right.
It's got a name. Like, you're allowed to go in. There are rules, right? At times.
That's why it's been so...
No, of course not. You have to go through screening. And back then, too, as you'll recall, there were COVID restrictions. So nobody was allowed to just waltz around in the Capitol without like a congressional liaison.
Again, none of this is real. The media, and this is why I say when people say, "Oh, why do you guys do sketches?" Well, first off, this is an entertainment show.
Yeah.
We provide more references than they have the entire time we've been broadcasting on CNN. They don't do it. They want to operate in the darkness. All we really want is for you to start educating yourself and doing your own research. You may disagree with the points, but we provide the research. And by the way, if you go look at the references, 90% of them are Washington Post, New York Times, coming from Salon.com, HuffPo. We try and use retribution to the point that he just says he never, ever deployed the National Guard. So it makes our job a lot easier because guess what? Donald Trump actually offered to deploy the National Guard. We have the image here in the days multiple times leading up to January 6th.
Yeah.
Who denied it? Nancy Pelosi.
And guess why she denied it?
These guys. Twice Crowder said, you can't believe anything the news says because it isn't real. But then he also said, for their sources, they'll refer to liberal news to prove it, to prove their points. It seems to me like fact checking to them is primarily just saying the things that people want to hear, and where lack of facts and ignorance on their part exists, just create a conspiracy theory. This, for example, the image that they put up for a second is not even the correct image to go along with what he's saying. This is about the police chief, not about Trump. Trump didn't say it. And the source for this is Image. That's where they got this. There is no reference to this on their page, their source page. It came from Image.
Correct. It was the summer. Violent outbreaks where they were attempting to actually storm the White House, and they did burn down a church across from the White House. So maybe it's because Nancy Pelosi and the mayor, again speculating, thought, well, if we bring them in, they might stop the violence that's been committed throughout these last 2 years against Trump supporters. They probably, if they don't want armed guards, it would suggest.
Just fucking stop, man. Who are you supposed to be serving with this bullshit? Stop.
I would say for the same reason that they gave Black Lives Matter and anarchists an entire 2-3 city blocks in Seattle. They were hoping that there would be some kind of violence.
Yeah. Then they could point to it just like they are right now and say, see, we're here to save you from this.
No.
Jesus. All right. Yeah. Who's the they that gave the anarchists 2 blocks? Which 2 blocks did they give them? When was that exactly? Was it Nancy Pelosi? Did she give them the 2 blocks? When did she give it to them? Was it, and when the first protests started with the Seattle police? Or was it when the protests were dying down to like 5 guys? Or was it when the feds showed up? Is that when Pelosi stepped in and gave them the 2 blocks? You guys, just shut the fuck up.
I mean, they were. Oh, here we go. And this is the summer?
Yep.
Oh, so this isn't January 6th.
This is not January 6th.
Odd.
That's a church riot. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them.
That was them burning down the church. And then there should also be them trying to kick down the barricades right there in front of the White House. So the idea that this was the most violent protest, hey, both had the same amount of casualties. Nothing was burned aside from the protester herself, Ashley Babbitt, right there. She's the only one who was shot. But there was certainly more property damage. How many people were held without bail from that summer who burned down the church, by the way? I'm sure we can find a picture of the church burned down. How many people? That's a genuine question. I don't know.
You're right. You don't know. Why don't you look it up and find out instead of making up wacky conspiracy theories? There was one guy that is suspected of breaking into into the church. Not that I'm agreeing with it. It was an awful thing to do. One guy got into the basement and lit a fire, and they never did catch him. Why don't you look up, not do your own research. How about if you do some research, like any research, instead of getting it from memes, wherever you get your knowledge? Why don't you look up Reverend Fisher and see what he has to say about his church and what happened after that?
Isn't it illegal in America, or at least at some point, to hold someone without bail for a certain amount of time?
Yes.
No. Because they chose to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
If they're,
the law changes, I guess, at the whim of the former vice president. And
right.
And by the way,
on to mangling the 6th Amendment. Where knowledge is lacking, just make up a conspiracy theory. Yes, people do have a right to a speedy trial. That's not a set time period. I'm sure some of the defendants brought this to their judge's review. And what do you think happened in the most complex investigation in the history of mankind? Yes, some of these are taking a long time. It's not because there's a conspiracy. It's because it's a complicated investigation. Just stop.